YouTube fam, welcome to the channel. It is your boy Jeff Rosado, and today I have a spicy deck tech for everyone today. So through unanimous decision, I posted a poll for everyone to vote in the community group chat, and essentially I had two decks that tied, so I had to randomly decide on which deck I was going to feature on my channel. But without further ado, I think that I have a very spicy list for everyone. So let's introduce the avatar here. We have the Seer. So Seer is a very interesting avatar. It has the generic ability to play or draw a sight. However, it also states at the start of your turn, you look at your next sight or spell, and you can choose to put that card on the bottom of its deck. So that's fairly interesting. I feel as though this ability is not the strongest, and there are certainly better avatars to use, but for the sake of this video, I thought it would be interesting to create a deck that would function with this avatar's ability. So, ideally the name of the game is Control, right? Because with this card, essentially what it's allowing us to do is manipulate our draws and hopefully just control the outcome of what we draw throughout the game. Throughout the course of the game, being able to put a bunch of cards at the bottom of our deck actually has a significant advantage. And you'll see as we go on into the deck. So let's go ahead and leave the Seer there. Let's go right on into this deck tech. Let's go ahead and showcase our artifacts. So we're playing the one Philosopher Stone, one Amethyst Core, and one Aquamarine Core. So this is a 2-element deck, and you know, you guys don't have to play these cards. I think that these are the better cards for generating mana for artifacts. However, if you cannot afford these, you can certainly play the mixes. I would highly recommend playing 2 mix air and 1 mix aqua. You can't go wrong with either, but I felt as though these were slightly better than the mixes only because you can utilize the mana that's given from these mana rocks. The mixes are a little peculiar because, you know, if you happen to have all water spells in your hand, but you have the mix air won't help you cast water spells, and the mix aqua won't help you cast air spells. So these are just a little bit better for what you're trying to do in terms of consistency. But, of course, the deck actually can function with both, however you feel comfortable. So for our last artifact, we're playing the Pnakotic Manuscript. This card is insane. It's a unique that says, the bearer has this ability to tap, reveal your topmost spell, and draw it. However, the bearer takes damage equal to that card's cost. So this is pretty interesting. We aren't necessarily using this on the Seer. However, if it ever comes down to it, we could attach this to the Seer, and then hopefully using the Seer's, let's call it Scry ability, we will be able to put cards on the bottom of our deck if they cost too much. And hopefully with the Manuscript, we can flip the top card of our deck and gain some card advantage. Now, the Manuscript is only in here for the minions, because the beautiful part about the card is that you can just put it on your minions and then have your minions suffer the damage from the Manuscript. And this will essentially save you life, but also give you the card advantage that you're seeking with the deck. So that's really it for the artifacts. I'm just going to leave them there. Going straight into our minions, we have one Highland Princess. This is basically in here just to search out our mana rocks. See, we're only playing 3 of them, so the odds of us drawing them are pretty low unless we start them with our opening hand. However, the Highland Princess, having Genesis, allows us to search any of these 3 cards and add it to our hand when it is summoned. So it's a neat little tutor there, and it's a very good card. Next, we have Grim Reaper. Grim Reaper is obviously just in here as a removal spell in the form of a minion, and it is very powerful if you manage to get a kill off of it, because it'll allow you to search your opponent's deck hand, and cemetery, and you can banish all copies of the minion that it killed. Really strong. Now getting on into the flavor of the deck, we have 4 Apprentice Wizard, and we also have 4 Deep-Sea Mermaid. So the namesake of this whole deck is just to manipulate your draws, right? So with Seer, we're able to look at the top card of our decks. Apprentice Wizard able to draw through our decks as well. And then Deep-Sea Mermaids actually having a little bit of synergy with the Seer. When it enters play, you get to draw your bottommost spell. So what's cool about that is let's say, for example, you have the manuscript on the Seer. You know that you have a very expensive cost card on top of your deck. With the Seer, you put it at the bottom of your deck, and then summoning the Deep-Sea Mermaids on that turn will allow you to draw that same card from the bottom of your deck. Essentially, this is just card manipulation. You're just manipulating your draws, you're being careful on what you draw, but at the same time, you're digging through your deck on several different occasions here. And the Deep-Sea Mermaids and Apprentice Wizard are really good just for that. Getting on into our other minions. Now, these are going to be basically what help us finish the game. We have 3 Phase Assassin, having Void Walk, meaning that you can, place it into the Void, and it has a neat little ability where when it enters the Void, it gains Stealth. So our opponent cannot target it for attacks or for their spells until it declares an attack. Phase Assassin is pretty sweet. We really want to just summon this as close to our opponent's avatar as we can, and then dish out a ton of damage as soon as we can. Speaking of dealing damage, we have the 1 Ruler of Thul, which I believe is actually just the main card that you want to see. This is actually the card that will close out the game for you. So you're using Seer to control your draws, manipulating where the cards go either on top or bottom of your deck, and you want to try to fetch out this Ruler of Thul as best as you can, because summoning the Ruler of Thul just allows the top and bottom of the realms to be connected. Essentially, if you have an ally here, you can use this since it's connected to the other side of the realm, and you can attack. Best part is that minions occupying on the opposite sides of the realm, if they're on those sites, they gain 1 power, which is really good. Having all these weak minions is okay, because when we play the Ruler of Thul and we have all our minions stacked here, we send them all the way to the other side of the realm and we close out the game as quickly as we can. We have 2 Selfsame Simulacrum. This is really just in here to copy Ruler of Thul, and it's also in here to copy all of our Genesis abilities, helping us dig through our deck, helping us gain field advantage, and that's the namesake of the deck, is just to have as much advantage as we can. So we're going on into a little bit of our more expensive cards. So we have Daperyll Vampire. This is really something that you don't want to flip on the Pnakotic Manuscript, because it does have 5 for its cost, and you will lose 5 damage. However, if you're smart and if you have the manuscript on a weaker minion, you can use that minion to draw and you will be fine. Best part is with Seer, you can put this card at the bottom of your deck at the start of your turn, and then use the Deep-Sea Mermaids to further draw it, getting around the disadvantage on the manuscript. Another high cost card, but a very powerful card, is Hounds of Ondaros. This card literally has just everything printed on it. It has Airborne, Burrowing, Submerge, and Void Walk, and nearby enemies permanently lose Stealth. So, nothing is safe from these elite beasts. It's a very strong card, and, having Vampire, having Hounds, and Phase Assassin, these are going to be the minions that are really just closing out the game when you don't have the Ruler of Thul. However, if you do have the Ruler of Thul, that's just fantastic, because this will allow your minions to close out the game for you. Going on into our spells, we have the 1 Browse. Browse is essentially in here to also manipulate the top of our deck, and it also lets us look at the top 7 cards of our spellbook, and we can choose to put them on the bottom in any order. The fact that we can put it on the bottom of our spellbook in any order is huge, because the Deep-Sea Mermaids allows us to draw those cards later on. So be very wise with your decisions, and be very wise to plan out your turns ahead to ensure that you're going to be drawing these cards. Probably one of the most powerful spells that we have in the deck, even though it may not seem much at first, we have one Plague of Frogs. So this card is just really insane with Ruler of Thul, and it's also really insane with the Manuscript. See, because Plague of Frogs lets us summon 7 frog tokens. These frog tokens don't have any power or stats, but with the Ruler of Thul, if we happen to summon the 7 frogs at our avatar's location, and let's say we have the Seer at that location as well, whenever we do draw the Ruler of Thul, if we add up the math here, the frogs will each gain 1 power, making that a grand total of 7. And because the Seer is an ally, it also gets the +1 as well. So 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 damage with these 3 cards. That is crazy damage. Like, it's actually absurd when you can pull that off and deal that much damage to your opponent. The best part is that with this in the Manuscript, essentially what you can do is you can put the Manuscript on one of the frog tokens, tap the frog token, reveal the top card of your deck. It doesn't matter what it is, more than likely it's going to kill the frog, but you get to draw a card, right? When that frog dies, that frog will drop the Manuscript, and then you can identify another frog to pick up the Manuscript. Now, just by announcing that, you don't have to tap the frog to pick it up, which is actually broken, because essentially what this is allowing you to do is draw 7 cards. It really is just ridiculous, because you can use a frog, tap it, draw a spell, it dies because it takes damage, the other frog picks it up, and then you repeat the process until you have no more frogs left. And this type of card advantage is actually crazy, and I can see why they put the Manuscript as a unique. So Plague of Frogs, it actually has a lot of unique synergy in this deck. It could also just be used as blockers, but when you have this with the Ruler, again, you are just able to dish out so much damage, and it's really cool. So we have 4 Lightning Bolt, and we have 4 Grapple Shot. Essentially, these are just removal spells, but they're also ways to close out the game. You're able to just take out, weaker minions with the Lightning Bolt, and of course, finish off the game with it. And Grapple Shot's really in here just so your minions can attack twice, especially with Daperyll Vampire. Getting 2 strikes off of her will allow you to gain life, and that's just very powerful. Now, this is a card that I had to kind of work with my numbers. I have 3 Stormy Seas. These were originally going to be Drown, and you technically could play Drown. See, there's benefits to both, and it's really just your preference. If you play Drown, yeah, it'll only be able to submerge 1 target, but with the Manuscript, you're also going to be able to take less damage. If you're ever in a situation where you have your avatar equipped with the Manuscript, you really don't want to take that much damage from all these cards, and you have to be very careful. But the reason why I decided to go with Stormy Seas is really just because of Battle Mage. See, if Battle Mage has Screaming Skull attached to it, and it decides to attack our 7 frog tokens, they're going to draw 7 cards, kill all our minions, untap the Battle Mage, and then also, after it kills all the frogs, it's going to strike us, and that's just awful. So Stormy Seas is just a way of how we can just submerge all those powerful artifacts that the Battle Mage is carrying. And it's also just really good too, because there could be a chance that your opponent will also have multiple minions stacked on your sites, and then having the Stormy Seas will submerge all of them. Play your cards right, and if your opponent has, these powerful artifacts attached to their avatar, if they're on a water site, you can submerge them as well. And again, that's why I really like Stormy Seas. It's just able to take out multiple targets at once. But again, it is totally your preference on what you want to play. So we have 2 Chaos Twister. I mean, it just makes sense, right? We're air and water deck. Chaos Twister is just allowing us to remove minions from the board, also simultaneously dealing damage if we're lucky. And in a tight pinch, we can banish minions as well if it's placed into the void. And yeah, just Chaos Twister is just a really good overall card. And lastly, we have Atlantean Fate. So Atlantean Fate is really just in here to submerge cards as well. Essentially submerge multiple minions, you can submerge multiple artifacts. And it's also really good too because this can mess up your opponent's threshold. If, they're not a water threshold deck, you can strip their sites of those thresholds and you can gain some insane advantage from there. And this is just basically the main deck. This is it, everyone. Essentially, you just want to control the board with these powerful spells. You want to get as much damage as you can with your minions. You want to manipulate your draws with the Manuscript, with the Seer, the Wizard, and the Mermaids. And when your opponent least expects it, play a Ruler of Thul with these weaker frogs and just go to town. And in a nicer pinch, if you have the frogs with the Manuscript, I mean, you're in a good setting. You're able to draw a bunch of cards. You're not going to take damage because the frogs take them. And yeah, hopefully this will be enough to win the game. So that was it for the spellbook. Getting on into our Atlas, we have the one Boneyard. I mean, Genesis, it allows both players to play a minion from their cemetery onto this site, which is essentially good because if they happen to get rid of our bigger minions, we can just resurrect them. And we can also gain some advantage from our Genesis abilities as well. We have the one Tadpole Pool. Just being able to generate more frog tokens when it enters play. They do come in play submerged, but that's okay. We can still equip the Manuscript to the frogs when they are submerged, and then we can just use the ability to draw more cards. And yeah, that's just really it for that card. It's just there just for the Manuscript mainly. You have the one Geistwood. Geistwood's in here because we do have Apprentice Wizard and we do have Deep-Sea Mermaids. And if they happen to die on the Geistwood, those Genesis abilities will also become Deathrite abilities, meaning that when they die, we get to trigger those Genesis effects all over again. We have the one Mirror Realm. Mirror Realm, obviously it's Mirror Realm. It just enters play as a copy of any nearby site, which is just bonkers. You can copy your opponent's sites, you can copy your sites, and you can just gain some insane advantage off your Genesis abilities as well. We have the one Roots of Yggdrasil. Yeah, you guys know where I'm getting at with this. This is a very powerful card, and with the Seer deck, you're trying to control the board state. And with Roots, you can obviously just do that with this one card. If it's destroyed, it destroys everything, and it just gives you a little bit of insurance in case your opponent is getting pretty out of hand with their board. So we have two Sinkhole, and of course this is what's going to initiate the Roots to be destroyed. Essentially, Sinkhole, I mean, it's just really broken. You can also use this to destroy your opponent's sites, strip them of their mana and threshold, and if you play your cards right, you want to use the mana for this first before you use the effect, which is great. And again, it's also just really good because you can just start the game off with Sinkhole, draw cards, manipulate what you're drawing over the course of a few turns. When your opponent stacks up their field, and if you happen to have the Roots, you can play the Roots and then just destroy what your opponent has set up, and it can be just backbreaking if you manage to pull that off. Got two Floodplain. This is just really in here because we want to fix our mana threshold. We really just want to essentially give as much water threshold as we can possibly have, mainly for the Tadpole Pool and, of course, for the Plague of Frogs. But this is also really good if your opponent has Root Spider because you can flood that site, and then if their Root Spider is submerged, it will just die because it has burrowing, not submerged. I have the one Observatory. I'd like to play more, and honestly, I guess you could, because Observatory just essentially does what Seer does, and it just manipulates your draws, essentially. Genesis coming in play, looking at your next three spells, and then you can put them back in any order, which is really good too for the Manuscript, because you can put your weaker cost spells on top, and then with the Manuscript you can flip them and essentially not take as much damage. Play 3 Lighthouse. Basically our dual site for our elements. We have water and air, so this is just practically mandatory. We play one of each tower. This is just for our air threshold, but also allows us to accelerate our game. Whenever they come in play, if it's our only copy, it'll provide us 2 mana, and that can help us get out some higher cost spells easier. It's also really good too because it lets you play a turn 2 Deep-Sea Mermaids, it helps you play a turn 2 Apprentice Wizard, of course if you have the right threshold, but being able to ultimately just excel in our game plan is the name of the game. So for our last sites, we have 4 Winter River. You can play any river, but I just happen to have these 4, and I thought that they just looked nice with the deck. Now, if you had another Observatory, you can certainly play one less if you wanted to. But the river has some neat interaction because when it enters play, you look at the top spell and you can choose to keep it on top or put it on bottom. Again, manipulating the draws and manipulating our decks. Really good with Deep-Sea Mermaids as well, because you can put a very important card on the bottom, you know, continue drawing from your deck, but then the Deep-Sea Mermaids will get back the card you put at the bottom as well. And that's another cool thing about Deep-Sea Mermaids. If you mulligan cards away, you can also just put cards at the bottom of your deck, and since you know what's at the bottom, you're going to have a good advantage, and you really want to keep track of what you put at the bottom. And that's really just the name of the deck, is just deck manipulation and card advantage as much as you can. So guys, there you have it. That is my Seer water and air control deck. I hope that you guys enjoyed this deck tech. I think that this is a very exciting archetype. It obviously has room for improvement, and as the game gets older and as we continue to go on into new sets, I have a feeling that Seer can see some justice in the future. If you guys want to see more deck techs, you can certainly just recommend them to me. Leave them in the comments on decks that you would like to see, and I'll try my best to build them and showcase them on my channel. I hope that you've enjoyed this. I certainly did. I'm going to have a fun time playing this deck. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. And as always, guys, have an awesome week.